was the ultimate authority. All were eligible to every administrative post, all sat in turn as jurors in the law courts. The disabilities of poverty were minimized by payment for attendance in the assembly and the courts. And what is more extraordinary, even distinctions of ability were levelled by the practice of filling all offices, except the highest, by lot. Had the citizens been a class apart, as was the case in Sparta, had they been subjected from the cradle to a similar discipline and training, forbidden to engage in any trade or business, and consecrated to the service of the state, there would have been nothing surprising in this uncompromising assertion of equality. But in Athens the citizenship was extended to every rank and calling. The poor man jostled the rich, the shopman the aristocrat in the assembly. Cobblers, carpenters, smiths, farmers, merchants, and retail traders met together with the ancient landed gentry to debate and conclude on national affairs. And it was from such varied elements as these that the lot impartially chose the officials of the law, the revenue, the police, the highways, the markets, and the ports, as well as the jurors at whose mercy stood reputation, fortune, and life. The consequence was that in Athens, at least in the later period of her history, the middle and lower classes tended to monopolize political power. Of the popular leaders, Cleon, the most notorious, was a tanner, another was a baker, another a cattle dealer. Influence belonged to those who had the gift of leading the mass, and in that competition the man of tongue, of energy, and of resource was more than a match for the aristocrat of birth and intellect. The constitution of Athens, then, was one of political equality imposed upon social inequality. To illustrate the point, we may quote a passage from Aristophanes, which shows at once the influence exercised by the trading class and the disgust with which that influence was regarded by the aristocracy whom the poet represents. The passage is taken from the Knights, a comedy written to discredit Cleon, and turning upon the expulsion of the notorious tanner from the good graces of Demos, by the superior impudence and address of a sausage seller. Demosthenes, a general of the aristocratic party, is communicating to the latter the destiny that awaits him. Demosthenes, to the sausage seller gravely: "Set these poor wares aside, and now bow down to the ground, and adore the powers of earth and heaven." Day, why, what do you mean? O happy man, unconscious of your glorious destiny, now mean and unregarded, but tomorrow the mightiest of the mighty, Lord of Athens. Come, master, what's the use of making game? Why can't ye let me wash my guts and tripe, and sell my sausages in peace and quiet? O simple mortal, cast those thoughts aside. Bid guts and tripe farewell. Look here, behold, pointing to the audience. the mighty assembled multitude before ye? Sausage seller with a grumble of indifference. I see 'em. You shall be their lord and master, the sovereign and the ruler of them all, of the assemblies and tribunals, fleets and armies. You shall trample down the senate under foot, confound and crush the generals and commanders, arrest, imprison, and confine in irons, and feast and fornicate in the council house. Are there any means of making a great man of a sausage selling fellow such as I? The very means you have must make ye so. Low breeding, vulgar birth, and impudence. These must make ye what you're meant to be. I can't imagine that I'm good for much. Alas, but why do ye say so? What's the meaning of these misgivings? I discern within ye a promise and an inward consciousness of greatness. Tell me truly, are ye allied to the families of gentry? No, not I. I'm come from a common ordinary kindred, of the lower order. What a happiness! What a footing will it give ye! What a groundwork for confidence and favour at your outset! But bless ye, only consider my education. I can but barely read, in a kind of way. That makes against ye. The only thing against ye, the being able to read in any way. For now no lead nor influence is allowed to liberal arts or learned education, but to the brutal, base, and underbred. Embrace then, and hold fast the promises which the oracles of the gods announce to you. We have here an illustration, one among many that might be given, of the political equality that prevailed in Athens. It shows us how completely that distinction between the military or governing and the productive class, which belonged to the normal Greek conception of the state, had been broken down, on the side at least of privilege and right, though not on that of social estimation, in this most democratic of the ancient states. Politically, the Athenian trader and the Athenian artisan was the equal of the aristocrat of purest blood. And so far the government of Athens was a genuine democracy. But so far only. For in Athens, as in every Greek state, the greater part of the population was unfree, and the government, which was a democracy from the point of view of the freeman, was an oligarchy from the point of view of the slave. For the slaves, by the nature of their position, had no political rights, and they were more than half of the population. It is noticeable, however, that the freedom and individuality which was characteristic of the Athenian citizen appears to have reacted favourably on the position of the slaves. Not only had they, to a certain extent, the protection of the law against the worst excesses of their masters, but they were allowed a license of bearing and costume which would not have been tolerated in any other state. A contemporary writer notes that in dress and general appearance Athenian slaves were not to be distinguished from citizens, that they were permitted perfect freedom of speech, and that it was open to them to acquire a